the best. I'm blessed to know that lust is a test. I used to be the victim, now I'm just envisioning. I'm knowing this is.
I'm Suzi Landolfi, and welcome to Be Crazy Well. Now, why would a therapist say that? Because we all have mental health struggles, even therapists. The good news is we have so much more information about how we can be crazy well. On my podcast, we don't focus on what's wrong with us. We want to know what happened to us. We're going to explore how trauma affected us, both negatively and positively. That's right. I said positively. It's called post-traumatic growth, and it's a real thing. Be Crazy Well will share mental health wellness practices, the newest mental health research, and most importantly, how we all get to create the person we deserve to be and the life we deserve to live. So join the mental health evolution and be crazy well. So I wake up this morning, I make my tea.
Yep.
Just the way I like it, John. And I go downstairs to feed the dogs, and the refrigerator says error FF. So I, being from Boston, I want to think it's, I want to say F the fridge, right?
Yeah.
I'm from Boston. So we like F the fridge, right? Then I'm thinking. So it's the freezer fan. I have to go on YouTube and figure out what's going on, everything. My daughter's still sleeping, who is the whiz in the family. So anyway, that's how it started. So we've just cleaned out the fridge entirely.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, okay, I got to go upstairs now and do my podcast. And I get up here and I can't sign into anything in my computer.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And I'm good with people. I'm not good with computers. Like, that's not my area of expertise. So I have to get my daughter up from the fridge that she's now dealing with the frozen fan. That's what that stands for. And come up here to get all this. So now I'm on her computer and it looks all different. So I've been truly challenged this morning. And I know, that makes us stronger. And I don't need any more strength in my life. No, I don't need this anymore. I don't need this anymore. Okay, anyway, having that. So anyway, here I am, and I'm on the computer. And look at you. Look at all this stuff you got here.
Yeah.
You. Everybody, I'm talking to Jon. Well, now you got to say your last name for me. It's a French name.
Yes. Archambault.
Archambault. And je parle français un petit peu. Just enough to make sure I can get a croissant and know where the toilet is.
That's all we need.
That's
right?
all. A glass of wine would be nice too. But that's yeah. When I was in France, it's
and a straw, right, for the glass of wine.
No? Oh yes, a big straw for the glass of wine. My girlfriend got me a glass that you put on top. You screw on top of the wine bottle, and when you pour the wine bottle, it goes into the glass, so you don't even need a glass. It's attached to the wine bottle. John, I have so much to talk to you about, and we're probably going to have to do 2 of these.
For sure.
First of all, welcome to Be Crazy Well. And after reading about you, I said, oh, he's going to fit right in.
Yeah.
Why do we want to stop people from being crazy? I don't know. I think being crazy well is the way to go. Like, why do we need everybody to be well or to be the same? Be crazy, just do it well. Do it principally and do it well. So welcome to Be Crazy Well, and I'm sure you'll fit right in.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, being crazy, I think being crazy is just being not normal, right? So it's not being crazy. It's just being yourself.
Wait, I got to show you something. Where did I put it? Oh, it's right here. It's right here. Look. This is the myth of normal. Yes. The myth of normal. One of your Canadian buds.
Yes, he's fantastic. He's is truly.
Yeah. We're talking about Dr. Gabor Mate. And I always say, we so don't appreciate the Canadians enough. I mean, we just don't. And there's a whole bunch of disruptors up there. You guys are just disrupting everything. Of course, we'll let everybody have health insurance. Like, that's just something we do up here, right?
But you know what? I think there's positive and negative for those little things of how the society runs here. I mean, like, it takes a very long time to get that care system, if you wish, right? Like if you have an appointment for, I don't know, a scan, right? It might take you 9-10 months before you get in, right?
Right.
Unless you're a priority or you're a kid. Kids
Well,
goes quite fast, but
yeah. Well, we still have to, most of the time, I wouldn't say most of the time, ours is so all over the place in terms of any kind of consistency or
Mhm.
congruence with our care system. And then, of course, we put people in categories. So elderly, then veterans, kids. So you're right. You just got to pick the frustration
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
want, right?
Yeah, and I think there's positive in both sides. I
Right.
mean, like I was in North Carolina 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about taxes, right, just for the fun of it. And I'm from the French part of Canada, which is
Mhm.
let's go with the more socialist taking care of government. And we were taxed salary wise at 55%, right? So it's pretty high. And then you have on every merchandise that you buy or food or whatever that is, maybe it's 15.5, I believe, percent. So extremely taxed.
Yeah.
And your land is very taxed too. But daycare costs $5 a day,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
Your insurance. I mean, I was at 17 years old. I had my first car, and I think it was $400 fully covered for my first car for the year, right? Versus here, like hell, 20 years later, I'm paying $2,000 for two vehicles,
Yeah.
right? Which is just different province, different how they
Yeah.
treat people. I mean, there's positive in both end of it,
Yeah.
and there's negative in both end, right? Like,
And I think we forget that. I
mhm,
mean, what happens when my fridge went? Oh, no one else's fridge is messing up today. No one
yeah,
else's computer is messing up today, which is, of course, not true.
yeah.
Um, and I think you're right. I mean, it's that idea of struggle to strength. So when I read about you, first of all, you call yourself the black sheep.
Oh, for the podcast, yes.
Yeah. And so I want to know about that because I have theories about this idea of the black sheep, and not just in society, but in families.
Mhm.
My favorite. They're the bell ringers of the family. They're the ones saying things are not okay. They're the ones that are trying to get people to be more honest and to be less hypocritical. They're the ones that want things to change and to look at things honestly. That's just my experience as being a black sheep myself.
Mhm.
So tell me why black sheep?
Well, so first thing first, I'm from a family, so there's that animosity, and that's obviously 30, 45, 50 years and so on between the French and the English, right? Because when you had your Civil War, you guys won and kicked out the English, and then we got stuck with them.
Yeah, a
Uh,
Revolutionary War. You're right.
yes,
Right.
yes. So they took over here, and there's been that kind of forever fight of like, we're gonna separate from Canada, we're gonna have our whatever new friends, if you wish. So my family are both psychologists, my parents, and I think the lead that I wish they wanted me to take, it was the psychology lead, right, following
Right.
their business and what they created and so on and so forth. They're brilliant people. They speak 5 language, none of English by choice, right? So they don't say they're from Canada, they're from Quebec, right? So that's kind of the
Right.
difference when you look at it.
Right.
Um, Now, I joined the military after studying in Brazil. So my grandfather hid in the trees as a lumberjack during the Second World War, right? I have an uncle who tried to join the military and claimed being crazy to be released from his boot camp. And I have another cousin who tried to join after me and quit after, I think, a month or 2 months, something like this, the boot camp. So I'm the only one who served, right? So number one, I'm kind of the person who took a different path. Number two, I married an English woman,
Oh, how
right?
dare you?
I know, and it's funny because like they never interacted with my wife. They never talked to her, right? She did not. She doesn't speak English, French, and my parents don't speak English. So it's a lot of beautiful smiles and the hi or good morning and whatever the little words they can do. So I'm kind of outside of that realm. I moved roughly 2,600 miles away from home in a very English place, English, Canada English. So it's again, it's very different than what they decided. Also, the black sheep aspect is, I think, while being a police officer after serving the military, I ended up having a lot of. I love going to the mental health case calls. I wanted to help people, and I did not know I was sick already, but I wanted to support the suicide. There's different way of seeing it, and so on and so forth. I ended up seeing a lot of dead people, right? So there's some of those I find, and that's kind of what we were explained to, is coppers who actually end up with those a lot dead case, and other people will end up with a lot of chasing cars, right? But I had that. So the black sheep is also in that aspect, and talking openly about mental health is another thing, because it's in the world that we are. I mean, the community of the military and the community of the law enforcement, first responder, there's a lot of ego, right? And it's not always misplaced, but saying that you're sick, there's a shame, guilt trip, there's whatever those little factor comes with it, and I don't care, right? It is a tough go. It is a tough go to recover. But if we're shaming our own peers on top of it, we're making it worse. So I just started to talk openly about it while being sick. And I actually tested the water by going, let's say on my, I was going to buy some dog food for my dogs. And the man who owned the store is like, oh, I remember you. You said you're military or police. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, do you still work? No, I'm on long-term disability. And he's like, why is that? And I'm like, well, I have PTSD. And he took the box of raw food and walked me out, right? And it was not, I didn't perceive that as a mean aspect,
Right.
but the perspective that people see when they hear military veteran, PTSD is violence. And why is that? Well, because there's probably been 1 or 2 shooting in the last, whatever, 200 years has been done by veterans, or the movies on TV, right? Like there's movies on Netflix where that's what they show, veterans, PTSD. They don't say it's PTSD, but mental health injury. And boom, they're violent. It's there's so many of us who actually hide in the basement because they're afraid of outside. They're not angry. They're so ashamed. So why not talking about it? And then you have friends who commit suicide because they kept everything in, right? And they just want to quiet down or silence that pain. Right. And I was talking, actually, funny enough, this morning to one of the spouse of a man I served with. And she had mentioned that he said before committing suicide, I think a couple months before, he said that he would never do that coward gesture. And I, for someone who actually saw myself committing the act at one point of my life, I had to explain to her, I'm like, he's not a coward. He didn't want to quit on life. He wanted to stop the pain. Right. And that's it. You don't, and it doesn't function the normal way. It functioned differently. Right. So people have a perspective. People who are totally never been sick as that form of vision of that suicide that is totally, I think, sometimes false. Right. So all of those things kind of build it up. Build up that black sheep, if you want, right? Like, or that different type of person. And I've been lucky enough to be selected for Special Force, which I had never felt accepted in a group of people until I ended up there.
Right.
Which is a bunch of black sheep, right? Which is a bunch of weird people.
We made a club for them. We made you're in the club now.
And I mean, it goes for a lot of things, right? It's not just mental health injuries, but I mean, I've been diagnosed a year ago by ADHD, so neurodivergent, if you want. And there's so many people who are like, this is the worst thing that can happen to me. I'm like, well, not really. There's a lot of positive to this, right? So the society see it negatively because it's different.
Right. But, well, I really appreciate what you're saying. So I've been working with veterans for quite a while, like almost, I guess it's getting close to 20 years. And I'm a civilian myself. And I always joke with all the veterans I work, I go, civilians irritate me too. So I get why you guys don't like hanging out with us, because we are irritating. Besides that, one of the things, Jon, that was so important to me was, and also with first responders, the idea that there's something wrong with you, as opposed to a whole bunch of stuff happened to you, right? A whole bunch of stuff happened to you on a daily basis. So it's one thing, veteran combat, you're down there for 9 months, a year, maybe 5 deployments, got it. Police officer, it's every day. Now, I don't say that something happens every day, but the potential of it happening every day. So you're sitting, and then explosion of danger, explosion of danger. So your central nervous system is going up and down all day long. One of the things, though, that really intrigued me as I started to work with veterans was this idea that every time I talked to them about the horrific stuff that happened to them downrange, they ended the story with, and I'd go back tomorrow. And
Yeah.
oh, wait a minute, that's interesting. So you go back tomorrow, and I said, yeah, but you lost a leg. Like, oh, yeah, I know. I still go back tomorrow. I have a veteran who went back after losing a leg. So then I'm standing with another veteran, and I made all the veterans go through their childhood. And they actually filled out a wonderful graph, like a genogram. And I gave them a red pencil, a marker for all the trauma that went through all generations, and a blue for all the post-traumatic growth.
Yeah.
That's real. That idea that you just said it, you said, and there's some great things about even having a diagnosis, even having a struggle, a mental health struggle. There are things that you have learned, that you have gained from that. So we call that post-traumatic growth.
Yes.
All right, got it. People smarter than me, even though I saw it, I didn't do the study, started to study the childhood of combat veterans, or all veterans. 35% of all veterans in the United States come from horrific childhoods, high ACEs. Like they go into the military with symptoms of PTSD that are terrifically important and successful downrange.
Yep. Yeah.
You put them downrange, that hypervigilance, impatient, can't make a mistake, people die when you make a mistake, all this stuff that they can do from the PTSD from their childhood fits perfectly downrange. Perfectly.
Yep.
The trouble is you can't live downrange.
No.
You have to come back. So now you are such a wonderful, I want to say this, you're like such a wonderful subject that we can study, because you've done both childhood, military, and then police officer.
Yes.
Now, no one's done enough about police officers, what happened to them as children. You said something so important that I want you to speak more about. You said it was the first time I belonged somewhere.
Yeah.
So black sheep as a kid, people, you're looking for your tribe.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, you're totally right. I'm still in therapy, and I'm doing right now the IFS, which is the internal family system. Yeah. Because we found that it was started that multiple paper cut from childhood, right?
Yes.
Right. So and from being bullied, from being rejected because I did not fit the mold of everyone, because I was poor. My parents sent me to a rich school. So my parents knew I had ADHD, did not want me to be diagnosed with it, to have the stigma with it, right? So I learned it, and then I called my parents, and I'm like, I have ADHD? He's like, yeah, we've been knowing that since you're 6. And I was like, you could have told me, so
That's right.
and answer some question why I'm a bing zone and a squirrel at time. But yeah, I've been bullied, right? And I've been, like, they say it's neglect, right? When we looked into kind of things, but I don't think my parents neglected me. We had
not on purpose.
No, exactly. I think they're great parents, but I had a sister when I was 10 years old, so she took the priority but as a kid, it was not perceived the same way. So now I understand it, right? So anyways, I went through those little steps here and there, and not being able to get into a family or a group of friends.
That's right.
Then the military was kind of a win-win. They're stuck with me, I'm stuck with them. There we go, we become friends, right? Or family, brothers, sisters. And then the special force aspect, well, the very interesting part is there's a high percentage of people who also have ADHD in it, right?
Yes.
Not diagnosed. So with that said, which is extremely fun or interesting, if you wish, is, well, we have usually ADHD people as an odd kind of sense of humor, right? Mix that with dark sense of humor, I fit in perfectly. That hyper focus of ADHD, well, special force was kind of a win, because I would be stuck at my desk or whatever
about that
I'm doing.
for a minute. You just said something that is so important. Everybody thinks that ADHD is you can't focus at all.
That's not true.
That's not
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
When you are connected, you focus very well on what you know is
What you're,
important to focus on.
what you're passionate about.
Yeah, what you're
Right?
passionate about.
Yeah. So if you're not passionate, you get bored and you carry on.
That's
not
right.
doing it.
That's right.
And this is where the actually the attention or concentration is out. So as a kid, it was not seen much because I loved school. I was that weird kid who read books and learn whatever maybe with it. I was not good at sports. I mean, my parents were not pushing it because they're both psychologists and that's what they focused on. And I mean, hockey was playing, but we were not watching it so much. So all of that to say, that's kind of where I kind of fit in well. And it was a mix of English and French, and everyone there, whatever the number of people we were in the unit, we're all going towards the same end. There was not that one person who's like, I don't want to go to work today, I'm leaving. Right? It did not exist. Or there was there was a frame, but the frame was you come here to work, you do whatever you have to do, and it has to be done well for yesterday, right? Because it's always the military, everything is done yesterday. But I was fitting in because we were similar. We were all focusing on the same thing. Now, with time, and it's funny that we talked about hyperfocus because I sat with someone yesterday who just got diagnosed and she's like, how do you manage this? And I'm like, it's easy. You switch it on, you switch it off, you switch it on, you switch it off. And it gets to a point where you can actually control that hyper focus. Right?
Eventually becomes a dimmer switch.
Yes.
If you practice, you will, and that's why I talk about wellness practices and not tools. I haven't opened my toolkit in years, unless something breaks. But you can actually create just the same way you did in the military and as a police officer. You practiced and trained and retrained, and that's how you got good at a lot of things. Right? Yeah. It's the same with mental health.
Exactly. And it makes you aware. So let's go with ADHD or PTSD or depression or anxiety, whatever we're going to call it. Right. They all work, right? Because if you become aware enough of what internally happened or what's going on, then you can foresee, okay, well, if I keep going that way, I might be triggered. If I keep going that way, I might be overwhelmed. So, and so on and so forth. So when you're aware, which is a big job just to be aware, I think.
Practice.
Yes. But when you're aware, then you can first communicate that with your family, right? So my partner, I started to open up more because I was like, wait, I'm fully aware this is coming right now. And she would be like, stop driving. Like if driving stressing you out, stop driving, come back home, sit on the couch, breathe. Or what can I do? And I'm like, right now, like, or the freezing zone of ADHD where you sit on the couch or it's look like dissociation type deal.
Yeah.
And I would be like, okay, that's coming up. What can I do? I'm like, there's nothing you can do. I need to kick my butt out of there, but I need to find a way because right now I'm literally glued in. So with awareness comes the next steps, right? And the next steps and so on and so forth. But I think the awareness bring you as well being closer to your family because when you communicate it, then they're not lost in the dark. They're not, they don't feel rejected or take it for granted or whatever the hell may be.
Or take it personal. Or,
exactly.
like you're not helping enough.
Yeah. And I think for this is where sometimes support group can be very negative, right? Because they're fantastic because you sit in a room, everyone understand. You don't have to tell them today I feel like this, right? I feel like a bag of this. Yeah. But you don't have to explain. So you come back home to your spouse and you just spend 2, 3, 4 hours, whatever that is in the group where it was simple.
That's right.
And then you're like,
person you love and someone you're close to doesn't. And
it's kind of your fault, right? Because you did not open to that person, explain. And I think I hear that often from any type of uniform. Well, I don't want to injure them. Well, you don't have to tell them your trauma. You can probably tell the frame, the big lines of it. That's all they need to know, right? You don't need to know that there is 5 pieces of brain that you don't have to do that. You don't have to hurt them or injure them by fear of. But if you remain that you can say the big lines, and this is what I'm seeing right now. I mean, we had a call where there's a kid of 18 months old hung. Like it was just a fluke where the dad answered the door. Boom, the kid is dead. 18 months was pretty bad. That's all I said to my wife. I didn't say about the smell. I didn't say about what it looks. It's enough details. for the person to, okay, well, that's what he's seeing or she's seeing at the moment. Good, I understand. It's hard. That should be it, right? So the communication is fantastic, but going too much on group support because it feels easy, it lights up, and so on, well, the other side will go bad.
Yeah.
So like everything, it's a balance, right?
Yeah,
A
it
glass
is,
of
yeah.
wine is great, but I mean, $4 of wine, probably not so much, right?
Not balanced, maybe
Yeah.
2, but not right.
Yeah.
So I so appreciate what you're talking about, because we're talking about men and women of service.
Mhm.
I don't say you're in the service. I know police officers down here, it's protect and serve.
Yeah.
And so I say that as a child, you experienced being bullied.
Mhm.
And so you know what it's like to be vulnerable.
Yes.
We're vulnerable a lot. You were not doing what the other quote unquote boys or even some of the girls were doing, which gives you awareness.
Mhm.
It gives you awareness because of your experience, because you've experienced it. And one of the things I find as a therapist that I don't like about the medical model as a therapist is that I'm not supposed to necessarily tell you that I've experienced that too. So you talked about a support group, peer to peer, where
Yeah.
they can say, "Oh yeah, when I was downrange, well," so you got this common. One of the problems with the medical model is that I can tell you what to do to get better, and
Mhm.
I don't have to do it. I can tell you to quit smoking, quit drinking, lose 100 pounds, and go home and smoke a carton of cigarettes, drink 4 boxes of wine, and eat an entire cheesecake myself. And then
Yes.
come back into my office and appear to be well.
Mhm.
So one of the things that I love about men and women like yourself that are talking openly is you're actually giving us another opportunity to say, wait a minute, mental health is better when we're all in this together and
Mhm.
we're all sharing. So as
Yes.
a therapist, I can say, I told you before we just started my whole life was struggle this morning. There was nothing
Mhm.
that went well. People think that therapists, oh, they got it all together. No, I had a shitty morning, period. Right? I had to do my deep breathing so that my adrenaline wouldn't kick in.
Yeah.
Speak to me about how this way of being a disruptor, you say black sheep, I say disruptors. I love disruptors. And Gabor Mate, we talked about that. He disrupted the whole medical model about addiction
He
because
did.
it's more about what happened to you, not what's wrong with you.
Mhm.
The only trouble with diagnosis is it gives a label and what's quote unquote wrong with you, but it doesn't give the story which you just gave us. So speak to us more about how we encourage, I spell that I-N,
Okay.
not E-N, the courage within. How
Yes.
do we encourage all of us to come forward and be more honest about what happened to us and what we're doing to help ourselves?
I think first thing first, when we're doing the speaking out loud, we're doing it for ourselves. So part of the serving people, right? Because it's a type of personality. It's not a uniform. You're totally right.
It's
Um,
exactly right. Yeah.
so what we do usually is put those people first.
Mhm.
So quite often people who serve forget about themselves. Now the rerouting has to be, well, I need to be like you said at first, right? Well, I need to be in a good body, right? Like and not as fit body. What I'm saying is I need to be healthy for myself to help health people to get healthier.
Right.
So we need to kind of reroute this as I'm number one, and then the population will be number two, because if I'm on my number one, I'm at a 10 out of 10, I'll be able to help others and give some of that energy, love, and whatever that is, respect, confidence, and so on, right? Um, now, and this is the other part, the wired differently is this as well,
Mhm.
because most of the population, it's usually the opposite. They put themselves first and it's them first, and oh, this doesn't fit my life, or I'm offended, or whatever the hell maybe.
Right.
But most of that community that we're talking about does things the other way.
That's
So
right.
when it's time to open up, the only thing that they think is, well, people will think this, people will think this. When truthfully, when you talk it out loud, when you speak it out loud,
Mhm.
you're doing it for you, because it needs to get off your chest first and foremost, right?
Absolutely.
So, and I mean, I think there's terms as well, right? Like there's that big, and I was talking to a doctor actually from US, Pamela Hall. Love the doctor, she's fantastic. And me and her were talking in Canada for people of service who have PTSD. They call it OSI, operational stress injury.
Oh,
which makes sense, right?
yeah.
It was invented, I think, in 2001 by a lieutenant colonel in the military, and I like the term. But then I'm like, what do you think about the D of disorder, injury, or I, or whatever? She's like, about we don't give a F about this term, and we try to help people. And I was like, yeah, you kind of got a point here, because a lot of people are like, I don't like the D, I don't like the I don't. Who cares about? We're helping each other to
That's,
accept each other and
mhm.
to get off that guilt of I'm leaving my team back if I'm going to get help. Yes, but you're not at your 100% anyways, so you're
Right.
not helping your
You're
team that.
actually more of a danger to yourself and others.
Mhm.
And I have to understand that too. And you know what's interesting? I'm getting older. So, as cute as I am, I'm 73 years old.
No way.
I'm 73 and I box 3 times a week with George Foreman's son,
Nice.
which is really fun. I say that because as great shape as I'm in terms of my daily practice of staying healthy, physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, and financially. We don't talk
Yes.
enough about that. I can't do everything I used to be able to do. So it's very important for me to be able to say to my daughter, my grandson, and all the people that care about me, hey, I can't lift that.
Hmm.
No problem. It's like, of course, Gma, everybody calls me Gma. Of course, Gma, we can, yeah, let me get that for you. Now, sometimes I can, and people come and rush to help old ladies. And I go, whoa, 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 T.O., I can lift that. I'm going to keep doing it until I can't.
Yeah.
I'll let you know when I don't. So when I went to lift something the other day, I went, oh, this isn't happening.
Yeah.
I can't do that. So not only I am 100% at 73, I'm not what I was at 53, 33, 13.
Great.
Therefore, if we are allowed and we encourage people to ask for help when there's something physical that they can't lift, I mean, everybody can do that. No one ever gets mad at anybody or says anything about you when they go, hey, help, let me help lift that couch. Can you help me lift that couch? Sure, again. What
Yep.
is the problem about lifting up some of the weight and struggle that we have on our psyche, on our heart, on our mind? It seems so, it doesn't even seem pragmatic. It doesn't seem logical to me. And I try to be a logical person.
So I find that super interesting as well, because I've seen my parents. My dad worked with men who have tendency to be violent towards their family members, and my dad weekly would go to see a psychiatrist or psychologist to empty his bag. That's kind of how he called it.
Yeah.
And obviously he's not the only therapist who does this. There's plenty of them.
Mhm.
So why don't we do it?
Yeah.
All right. Why like that smaller, and it's not smaller or bigger job. There's nothing of it, right?
Right. Right.
We're facing trauma daily, or we're facing crisis. I think the term is more crisis, daily. Some of them you'll digest, some of them you don't, but it's kind of important to talk about it. So if it's not a therapist, it can be just a friend.
Right.
Talk about it and like take it out. Now, I mean, it's the same with dark humor is important, and a lot of coping mechanism come with it. But on the other end, it's also wearing a mask, right? With
Yeah.
that dark
It's
humor,
kind
right?
of peeking out the door, but you're not really opening it up. You're just
Yeah,
kind of like, you know,
you're skimming the top of the
that's
iceberg,
right. Yeah. I'm just going to let
right?
you know I can make a humor about this. And no one says, whoa, wait, that's funny. And that's funny. And
Hmm.
let's go deep.
Yeah,
Let's talk more about it.
yeah. And so same subject. I mean, because with PTS
Mhm.
comes all of those little illness around it, right? So I mean, the sex drive being dropped is a
Yes.
big one,
Yeah.
right? Sleep, we all know that one.
My
And I
blood
mean,
pressure,
blood pressure, I mean, there's
diabetes, even.
yeah, there's digestion, there's
Yep.
grinding your teeth, there's, I mean, name it, right? And that's another one that I brought up, because as a man, we don't talk about the thing not lifting up, right? Like having an issue with erection. So I was in a meeting. I was at doing a speaking at a speaking event. Sorry, and I started to talk. And I'm 36 years old, and I'm like, so at 33 years old, I was not able to have an erection, and I saw some face light up, right? Because we don't talk about
That's
this,
right.
right? And I had to have like pills for X amount of time. The truth is, it's totally normal, right? Your brain is so, and your brain, your heart, whatever the flow of feelings that goes, because there's a disconnect between this and this, is so high
Yeah.
that it has to shut down something.
It does. It
And
needs
if it's not,
energy from somewhere.
yeah, and if it's that's not important in the moment, we'll shut it down,
That's exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So, but it's important to say this because you need to communicate again with your spouse,
Right.
because if not, they will feel rejected, right? They will feel not desired and so on. And it's not that you don't want to desire them; it's just that it doesn't work. The
Yeah.
machine
And
doesn't work.
I try to tell people this all the time, you can take all the drugs and alcohol in the world,
Mhm.
and that will affect your testosterone level, will affect your ability to have an erection. Stress, continual stress, will do that quicker, deeper, longer than anything else.
Yeah.
Nothing
And,
will take that away. And for women too.
yes, and for women, it's even harder to figure it out, right? Because you don't have that organ, the up and down, up and down.
Yeah, we can fake it, which is I would never let anybody, I would
Yeah,
never support. We can literally fake that. Oh no, I did.
yeah.
No.
I have a friend who went through that process, and to prove to the VA, I think it took her 3 years,
Mhm.
because there's so many tests they have to go through, and versus me took me whatever a year, right? Because
Right.
paperwork, government, and so on. But it's extremely and it comes down to communication. You need to speak, and you need to speak first thing foremost for you, because maybe that doctor will give you something that will fix the thing. Maybe it's your testosterone level has to be higher because you're at the bottom of it, right? Because playing a roller coaster with your body does that.
It does.
And that goes with, gaining weight. So I personally found a website where I was able to, just for men, to do my testing and so on, and they're like, yeah, you're lower. And I mean, keeping track of those things is another important thing. The thing that I discovered, I think, a year ago, is my heart flip. This is the only way I can explain it. When I'm a normal person, like I'm not stressed, there's nothing crazy happening, my heart is between 110 to 120 beats a
Right.
minute. And when I'm stressed, it goes down to 40 to 60. Now, at my age, should be the opposite. Should be at
Yeah.
40 to 60, stress at 110, 120 or higher. It doesn't do that. So my heart kind of rewired itself. I don't know why. The cardiologist that I met here said it's totally normal. I'm like, it's not normal. I would have not been deployed. I would have not been in the police. I wouldn't. It's not. But your body is protecting itself. It want to survive, right? So same as dissociation is another good factor that
Yes.
people needs to understand and maybe see in their own life. I mean, I remember when I was probably 4 years ago, I was doing dissociation. I thought I was extremely brilliant. I'm like, I don't know what they're saying really, but I understand everything they're saying. Right now, you're gonna tell me what do you mean? Well, I spoke Spanish and Portuguese, so I was like, I don't know which language it is, but my brain understand. The truth is, as of blanking out for an hour in front of a TV, I was not understanding anything. That was the body shutting down and say, you're too stressed. You need
Yeah,
to
you're too stressed.
slow
Exactly.
down.
Right. You
Right.
need a break. It's like taking a break. John, we only got a few minutes left and we've just started. So here's what my ask is. First
Yeah.
of all, when we post this, we want to give your podcast any other information about yourself so people can listen to you, contact you, and all of that.
Mhm.
Would you be willing to come back several times and we'll take each area? We'll actually get an area. I have so many friends that are police officers and obviously veterans as well, and civilians. Like one of the things we want to do is if you served in the military and you served obviously as a police officer, serving is who you are. It
Mhm.
seems to me that it would be wonderful to have men and women like yourself that are truly opening up the world of mental health so that we can all have those practices that work for us. Would you come back and we'll take sections, we'll
For
take
sure.
issues, and let's do that because a disruptor deserves to have a place to disrupt. And we got a big one right now. So we need you and we need you desperately. And I think that again, you served in the military, you served as a police officer, now you get to serve in another way.
Mhm. I think where I serve the most right now, and that's kind of rewarding, which you're right.
Yeah.
The PTS diagnosis is not necessarily a bad thing,
No.
because they brought back a lot of things. But now I'm more conscious of what's going on, and I'm more present for the family upstairs, right? The two kids, the wife, the dogs, even if you wish, right? But I think it comes down to I feel now compared to before. I knew what feelings I should have because of society picture that we should carry on. And I don't care about that picture anymore, right? So if I'm sad, I'm sad today. Carry on. If I'm happy, I'm happy, and that's it. That's how you go with the feeling. Which I remember a few Christmas ago when my kid was 2 years old, he was opening gift at Christmas, and he was so happy. And I was looking at everyone. My in-laws were there, and I smiled and I laughed because that was what was requested in a normal society.
Expected, right?
Right. And that's when I kind of clicked in. You're not that great or okay at it, right? There's one thing that an OT told me once, and she told me, I will never ask a veteran or a military person if they're able to do something, because they will do it either way.
That's
right. So during the OT, she's like, are you able, do you feel okay going to the grocery? Because I was relearning to doing my grocery.
Right.
And I'm like, yep. And then I came back, and she called me, I think, the next day, and she said, oh, did it go? I'm like, I don't know. I just went. And she's like, you didn't feel anything? No, I shut down the battery. I went there because that was the mission, and it came out. Right. And then I sat in my house because I was so triggered. It was too early for me to do this.
Yeah.
So opening up and understanding that there's things that at this time might not work.
Right.
But maybe tomorrow, maybe after like practice, like we said before, it will help, right? You don't lift 500 pounds deadlift.
That's exactly right. You don't do a headstand in yoga class, the first class.
No.
Right.
So it's a learning process.
So that's what I want us to do. I want us to be able to know that people can keep coming in when you and I are on and talk about certain things. Like, let's go deeper into the sexuality. Let's go deeper into even how you maintain a roof over your head. That's almost impossible when you're not functioning well. We don't talk enough about resources and finances and how to do that. We don't talk enough about that. So let's do that. I can't thank you enough. I'm so grateful that you put up with all my refrigerator today, and then the computer not working. And here we are. We did it.
The FF fridge.
That's right. The FF refrigerator. I just, oh my God, when I saw that, I actually made myself laugh. I go, oh yeah, F the refrigerator. That's what that means. So thank you again, and welcome to Be Crazy Well. You're one of the tribe now. You got it. You are crazy well. We're grateful for it. And we'll be posting this soon. And everybody, please join us. And by the way, Jon, the theme song, hope you get to listen to it when you watch the podcast. It's by Calvin Love.
Okay.
A wonderful songwriter and human being. And it's called Be Crazy Well. And it's called Be Your Best Self. Be Crazy Well is the podcast. Be Your Best Self. And great. So I do want you to know that we're just so grateful to have you. And people get to find Black Sheep Podcast.
Yes. It's Black Sheep Podcast by Wired Differently. It's on Spotify, Apple, whatever I was able to find in YouTube.
Okay.
Because I'm learning as well.
That's right.
It's an
Thank God I have a grandson and a daughter who help me figure all this stuff out, because I would still be writing letters. Okay. Bless you. Have a great week, and everybody be crazy well. Thanks. And we're going to have you back in a couple of weeks.
For sure. I will be here.
Bye-bye.